Imagine that you're a 2L, you're $100,000 in debt. You just signed a lease for your third year, and then your law school sends an email saying they're closing. That actually happened to students at Golden Gate University School of Law in San Francisco, a school that had been open for 123 years. Students sued to try to keep it open, the judge said no, and they had to scramble to transfer or walk away with nothing. But the debt followed them either way. Every dollar they borrowed is still owed. The school is gone, but the loans are not. And Golden Gate is not an isolated case. At least 16 accredited law schools have closed or lost their accreditation since 2016. I'm going to name names today. I'll share which ones, what went wrong, and what's coming next because a new federal law could put even more schools on the chopping block. Now, I've been doing this since 2005. I talk to prospective law students every single day, and most of them have never looked up a single data point about the schools they're applying to. Arizona Summit closed, Whittier closed, Florida Coastal, Valparaiso, Charlotte, Concordia, Savannah Law, Indiana Tech all closed. Thomas Jefferson in San Diego lost its ABA accreditation, still operates under California state accreditation, but that degree is not going to let you sit for the bar in most other states. And so if you ever want to move, you've got a problem. Now, Cooley Law School closed 3 of its campuses, and then the main campus nearly lost accreditation also. The ABA put Cooley on probation in September 2025. Their 2-year bar passage rate had dropped to 57%. First-time bar takers dropped to 51%, second lowest of any ABA law school in the entire country. Now, they survived, barely. Their 2024 graduates eventually hit a 76.2% bar passage rate, just over the 75% minimum. So the ABA lifted the probation. But if you're a student at a school that's celebrating clearing the floor by 1.2 percentage points, you should probably be concerned. And the pattern at every one of these schools is identical. Enrollment starts slipping, bar passage rates drop, the school shrinks its class to try to boost the numbers. But smaller classes means less tuition revenue, and less revenue means fewer resources, fewer faculty, worse outcomes. It's a vicious cycle. And by the time the closure announcement comes, it's too late to do anything about it. Now, right now, multiple schools are on the ABA's public noncompliance list. You've got St. Thomas in Miami, University of New Hampshire, a lot of schools in Puerto Rico. All of this is published on the ABA Required Disclosures website. Anybody can look it up, but almost nobody does. Now, if this law school you're targeting is on any of the lists I just mentioned, or you've been through a law school closure, I want to hear from you. I want to hear about your situation. But there's something that happened last year that could make it even much worse for future students. Last July, Trump signed a massive budget bill called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And buried inside it is an earnings test that applies to every graduate program at every school that takes federal student loan money. And if graduates of your program don't earn above a certain threshold, your program loses access to federal loans. If the school fails 2 out of 3 years, students can no longer borrow federal money to attend the school. So for any law school that depends on tuition funded by student loans, and that's most of them, it's going to be game over. Now, for law schools specifically, graduates have to earn more than people who have just a bachelor's degree in the same state. And that sounds reasonable until you understand how legal salaries actually work. Law is one of the only fields where salaries split into 2 completely separate groups. About 15% of graduates land at big firms making $225,000 their first year out. Everybody else, the other 85%, makes somewhere between $55,000 a year and $100,000 a year. That's including public interest in smaller firms, government jobs. There's almost nobody in the middle. So let's say you graduate from a lower ranked law school in New York and you get a $65,000 a year job at a small firm. It's a real job, you pass the bar, you're practicing law. But the median lawyer's salary in New York is way higher than $65,000 because it's getting pulled up by all those associates at big firms making $225,000. And so under the new test, your school fails even though you're employed in doing real legal work. Now, the Department of Ed still has to finalize the details. A lot depends on how they define same field of study. A narrow definition means only comparing to other lawyers, and roughly half of law schools could fail that test. A broader definition means comparing it to paralegals and legal staff also, which would give weaker schools more room. But in big markets like New York, California, and Texas, even the broad definition might not save the weakest programs. Now, the same law also eliminates Grad PLUS loans starting in July. Students used to be able to borrow up to the full cost of attendance with no cap, but starting July 1st, just a couple of months, the new limit is $50,000 a year and $200,000 in total. Now, of course, a lot of law schools charge more than $50,000 a year in tuition before you even consider rent. Now, Texas and Florida have both dropped the ABA as their sole law school accreditor. Texas went first in January, Florida followed 9 days later, and the states of Ohio and Tennessee are both actively reviewing whether to do the same. Now, no law school in any of these states has actually left the ABA yet, and in Florida, if you graduate from a non-ABA accredited law school, you can only take the Florida bar, you can only practice law in Florida, while graduates from ABA accredited schools can practice anywhere. And so if you attend a school that drops its ABA accreditation, you are locking yourself into practicing in only one state. And of course, that decision has consequences throughout the entire rest of your career. You want to think about that now. And all of this is happening at the exact same time. So if I were applying to law school right now, here's what I would personally do. I would look up the ABA required disclosures, pull up every school on the list that you're considering, look at the bar passage rate. If it's below 80%, you want to take a closer look. If it's below 75%, that school is right at the accreditation floor. You want to think very seriously about whether you want to bet 3 years and 6 figures of tuition on a school operating at the edge. You also want to look at employment outcomes. You want to look at the percentage of graduates in full-time, long-term jobs requiring bar admission. If that number is below 50%, you want to think about what you're actually even paying for here. You also want to think about the institution itself. Is the law school part of a large university, or is it standing alone? Is the parent school financially healthy? Because the standalone law schools and the ones attached to small, struggling private school universities are the ones that end up closing. When money gets tight, the law school is the first to go. You also want to know the debt math before you sign anything. With the new loan limits, you've got to know the total cost of attendance and exactly how you're going to cover it. If a school's graduates earn $55,000 a year and you're borrowing $150,000 to attend, that's a pretty deep hole you may never climb out of. And of course, the single biggest lever you have in all of this is your LSAT score. The higher your score, the more options you have. You can get into a school with a 90+% bar passage rate instead of a school scraping by at 75%. You could get scholarship money that cuts your debt in half or more. You could end up at a university with a real endowment that's not going to be going anywhere. And the gap is getting wider. The latest ABA data shows LSAT medians went up almost 2 points across the board this past cycle. 10 years ago, only 5 law schools had a median LSAT of 170 or above. Now it's 28 law schools with a median of 170 or above. So the top schools are pulling away, the bottom schools are closing, and the middle is getting squeezed. And your LSAT score will determine which side of that divide you end up on. Now, the schools that are closing are the ones with the bottom of the rankings with the worst bar passage rates and the least money in the bank. A strong LSAT score is going to keep you away from those schools entirely. And if you want my help getting a higher LSAT score, putting together a study plan, I'm offering free LSAT tutoring for everybody watching this, now or later, no strings attached. We look at where you're at, where you've got to be, and map out a plan to help you get there. You could book that free LSAT tutoring lesson with me at unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below this video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well. That is an open offer for everybody watching this now or later. Happy to meet with you personally and talk you through your LSAT plan of attack, help you get to your goals. Now, happy to take any questions at all, anything at all on LSAT and law school admissions. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And if you want to book that free tutoring, again, the link is unpluggedprep.com/start. I see Jerome is asking, is there a correlation between ACT and SAT scores and LSAT scores? Yeah, there is. I mean, I think that people who tend to do well on one exam tend to do well on other exams also. Of course, no guarantees on that, but generally speaking, exam performance is correlated between different exams. That being said, correlation and prediction is not destiny, right? Even if you bombed the SAT or the ACT, you still can do great on the LSAT. You want to think about what you can do differently next time around. Ultimately, your improvement on the LSAT and any exam really is a function of the amount that you study and the way in which you study. So, how many hours are you putting in per day and per week? How many weeks and months are you putting into this? Are you getting support for your prep? Because the thing is that when you're studying on your own, you don't know what you don't know. But once we add some support into the mix, there's usually a pretty quick score boost, meaning there's going to be a lot of low hanging fruit, which is why we offer these free LSAT tutoring lessons. So don't rush it if you want to achieve your fullest potential. Give yourself the time you need to get a top score. A lot of students will put in only 2 to 3 months for their prep, when in reality it typically takes closer to 5 to 6 months to achieve your fullest potential. Not to say you can't get a top LSAT score in less time, but all else being equal, more time can only help. Jerry is asking, chances of getting off the waitlist with an LSAT score of 175 plus. So let's say, for example, you got waitlisted by a given law school. You want to get off the waitlist by retaking the LSAT. A 175 retake score could do a lot to help you get off the waitlist. As for how likely it is to get you off the waitlist, ultimately, let's look at what law school you're targeting. Every law school has different LSAT medians, different requirements, different LSAT scores that are going to make them take notice. The lower ranked the school, the lower their median is, the more impact a top LSAT score is going to have. But a 175 is above the medians of every law school in the country. So that score is going to help you at most, if not all, schools. Ray says, I was looking at Purdue Global. It's not ABA accredited, but for a 52.9K total price, it's great. You could still sit for Cal, Indiana, and NC. Okay, so Purdue Global, non-ABA accredited law school, but still allows you to sit for the bar in certain states. So the question is, what are your goals for your career? Does prestige matter to you? Where do you want to be able to practice law? If you go to a non-ABA school, you're going to be somewhat geographically constrained. As you mentioned, there are a couple of states where you can sit for the bar. Do your own research. Of course, I'm not necessarily agreeing with those details. I haven't done that research, but if you're considering Purdue, of course, look up whether that's true. But regardless, I mean, do you want to be geographically constrained? Or do you want your degree to be portable to any law school in the US? The thing is that your career is long. You probably have decades ahead of you, and you can't always say what's going to happen. Are you going to end up relocating because of family or a spouse or a job opportunity elsewhere? If your degree is not portable, you're trapped and you're limited. I always think keeping your options open is a good thing to do. You also want to look up the bar passage rates and the employment outcomes for any given law school that you're considering. Less prestigious schools, non-ABA schools, may not have the same outcomes for their students. Ali's asking, what is the lowest acceptable first-time bar passage rate I should consider when looking into a law school? Well, my research was indicating that 75% bar passage rate is the floor, and below that, a school's at risk of losing its ABA accreditation. You don't want to run that risk. I'd be looking more for like 80% or higher, ideally 85% or higher, 90%. You want to go to a law school where you are relatively likely to pass the bar, where it's a virtual certainty and they're giving you the support that you need to pass the bar exam. So that's something I'd be looking at. I'd say above 80% for sure, as a general rule of thumb. We also want to look at what kind of support is the law school giving you for bar exam prep in particular. And lower bar passage rates should raise some doubts as to the quality of the instruction or the quality of your peers at the school. Mood asks, does GPA matter to get into a good law school? Yeah, it certainly does. Your undergrad GPA matters a lot. I mean, really, Law school admissions is a function of your LSAT score and your GPA. It's pretty metrics driven, it's numbers driven. Your LSAT score weighs more heavily than your undergraduate GPA, but both of them play a role. Master's GPA, grad school GPAs do not play a role. They are not considered in the law school's calculations in their admissions index. For those who aren't aware, law schools use an index formula where they combine your LSAT score and your undergraduate GPA. They mix them together. They weight them differently, but they almost always weight LSAT score higher or more, and then that determines your chances more or less. The thing is that by the time folks get to looking at the LSAT, they're pretty late in college or have already graduated college. And so at that point, your GPA is pretty fixed. Not a whole lot you're going to do to improve your chances on the GPA front of things, the GPA side, but your LSAT score, you've still got significant room to improve that metric. And so I typically recommend no longer stressing the LSAT, no longer stressing the GPA, and instead giving more attention to your LSAT score. Your LSAT score is the most important factor in admissions, and you can retake the LSAT pretty easily. It's offered 8 times a year, and it weighs more heavily than all of undergrad combined. And so that's where I would focus your efforts to start with. And I said 8 times a year. Coming up, we've got the LSAT in June, August, September, October, and November. Then January and February of next year. So plenty of opportunities to retake the LSAT, get a higher score, or take it for the first time. And I actually do recommend that everybody retake the LSAT at least once for the simple reason that law schools do not average multiple LSAT scores, but rather they only take into consideration the highest score on your record. And so for that reason, there is no downside to retaking the LSAT. If you do worse, if your score drops, no big deal. The higher score from before just counts. You could retake it again. And if you do better, fantastic. Now you've got a higher score on your record. PHX asks, is 5 months of studying enough? I have not even started yet. Planning to take it in September and October. Yeah, 5 months is enough. You could start now. I would recommend starting now. If you could take the LSAT in September, you can still apply the month that application's open. Law school admissions is conducted on a rolling basis, meaning law schools can evaluate applications in the order in which they receive them. And so applying earlier is better than applying later, all else being equal. When you apply earlier, it's easier to get in. There are more seats available, and there's also more scholarship money available. As you get later into the cycle, there's less money available. It's a little bit harder to get in. That being said, better to apply later with a higher LSAT score than earlier with a lower LSAT score. But speaking now in mid-April, there's no reason you couldn't be ready by September. Just give it your summer. Devote your summer to the LSAT specifically. Make it your #1 priority and aim to knock it out then. And then you could retake it in October if you need to. Anand says, respect for acknowledging that some people wrongfully take advantage of accommodations. Yeah, I was talking about this a bit yesterday. I mean, I think that ultimately any element of a system that can be gamed will be gamed. Of course, there are honest actors, but there are also some dishonest actors who take advantage. And I'm not even mad at them necessarily. I'm more mad at the system for allowing them to take advantage of it. I think that any rational actor will have incentive to abuse a system that can be easily abused, and some people will, some people won't. But ultimately, they can make a reasonable argument that they're at a relative disadvantage if they don't take advantage, given that others are taking advantage. And you can, of course, say they should take the more honorable path. If they don't need the accommodations, they shouldn't pursue them. But ultimately, it's really LSAC's fault for granting them. If you're just asking for the accommodations and LSAC gives them to you, have you really done anything wrong? It's arguable. It's debatable. You could say, yes, they've done something wrong, but they're also bettering their own situation, and they're at a disadvantage if they don't. So ultimately, I think the system is broken. That's what it comes down to. And that's why my radical suggestion here to deal with the accommodations issue is just remove timing as a factor. Just make the LSAT harder for everybody. And everyone's going to hate me for saying that. I can imagine people throwing rotten fruit at me through the computer screen here. I get that. But really, if you just make the LSAT harder and you remove the time constraint, you then eliminate the possibility to abuse accommodations altogether. If everybody had double time or triple time or whatever, and you just make the questions harder, you are making a relatively more even playing field. And you're still allowing the test to separate people along a spectrum, which is ultimately what it's designed to do. I mean, it's an artificial game anyway. I remember that there was this podcast episode Malcolm Gladwell did several years ago where he asked people at LSAC why the LSAT is so strictly timed. Why is it 35-minute sections in particular? Why not an hour per section? And they couldn't really give a good answer on that. And I just I think that that's fair. It's ultimately the time constraint is arbitrary. You could say it would be just as valid to have it be 45-minute sections or hour-long sections. And the question is, why make it so strictly timed? And you could argue that, well, clients are getting billed by the hour, and so efficiency with timing is important. But at the same time, the world's evolving with AI playing more and more of a role. Maybe efficiency of work is not as important if AI is taking over a lot of the grunt work that would be tedious and time consuming. And then maybe more strategy becomes more important that is not as strictly timed. A lot of valid questions here, not a whole lot of easy answers on this. Officer Nubbs asks, is there any point to go to a lower ranked law school if the future of AI means that only top graduates will get jobs? Well, I don't know that only top graduates are going to get jobs. I think there's an argument to be made that as AI reduces the cost of legal services, you're going to then see an increased demand for services. If the cost of services drops, more people will consume work at a lower rate, and then there could be actually more demand for legal work overall. That's another version of Jevons paradox, which I talked about. I think it was on Friday last week. Basically, the idea that AI may actually increase demand for legal services. And I'm not sure that only graduates of top law schools are going to get jobs. I think, of course, graduates of top law schools are more likely to get big law jobs, more likely to get judicial clerkships, but demand for legal work may actually increase. And going to a lower ranked school allows you to take on less debt, which means taking on less risk. So that may be a better path for many folks. Joe asks, what's your take on 3+3 BA/JD programs, where you basically do a combined BA/JD, going directly from undergrad into law school at the same university? Are they actually worth it? Villanova is offering a full ride through their feeder undergrad program, but I'm skeptical, will they actually give the scholarship? Well, I'm a little confused here because you're saying they're offering a full ride, but you're skeptical if they're actually going to give the scholarship. So are they offering you a full ride, or are they not offering you a full ride? That's a pretty big question. To me, that's the most determinative question of whether you should pursue a program like this or not. Like, that is literally the $250,000 question right there. The answer determines whether I would think you should pursue it or not. I mean, if they're going to guarantee you admission to a program where they're guaranteeing you a full ride unconditional, that could be worth pursuing. But if you're skeptical, or if they're actually going to give you this scholarship, well, I'm like, why are you skeptical? Do you not trust them? Is it unconditional or is it conditional? I would think that you'd want to get some clarity on that before you sign on the dotted line and agree to this. You say they offer a full ride in their marketing page. Okay, you want to share the link to that? And again, is the full ride unconditional? Are they saying, we will take you and you will not pay a dime? Or are they saying, we will take you and give you a full ride, but you've got to be in the top third of your class. You've got to maintain a certain grade point average. To me, that's the question. I'm skeptical of a lot of these sorts of programs because if you accept admission to them, then you are foregoing any scholarship negotiation leverage in most cases. This program sounds different based on what you're telling me, but I'm curious about why you're skeptical about it. There are truth in advertising requirements. A university can't just make any claim they want to make and then not hold up what they claim to offer you. They've got to meet the conditions they're promising, or else they could get in some serious trouble. So I'm wondering if there's a a big asterisk with fine print saying that the full ride is conditional on you meeting certain requirements. So I'm curious to hear more about this. But broadly speaking, if you could go into this knowing that you would get a full ride for sure, I could see this being worth pursuing. But in general, I am skeptical of these programs because typically they are not offering you a full ride, and then you're basically trading the security, or basically you're accepting the security of guaranteed admission to law school pretty early in the process in exchange for not getting a scholarship or not getting any scholarship negotiation leverage. So you're saying, I said Joe gave a follow-up here. He says that they're offering a full ride. You're skeptical. They say full ride on their marketing page. Then on the page it says, quote, for the dual enrollment year, students pay TCNJ tuition, a scholarship not guaranteed. I don't know what TCNJ is. If you want to Google that and just tell me what the acronym stands for. But the key phrase here is scholarship not guaranteed. So there we have it. You're saying they offer a full ride, but scholarship's not guaranteed. So there you have it. It sounds like the fine print is actually, in fact, saying that we offer you a full ride, but you might not actually get it, in which case this sounds kind of sketchy to me. I'd want to get a lot more clarity on the details here before agreeing to do it. And ultimately, I'd say for most folks, doing one of these programs is not a good idea. And instead, you want to apply to a wide range of law schools, at least 10 to 15 schools. In other words, cast a wide net, get more offers of admission, have more scholarship negotiation leverage. So as a general rule of thumb, let's say you apply to 5 reach schools, 5 target schools, 5 safety schools. So 5 schools where you're a bit below on the numbers, but hey, you could get lucky, so you shoot your shot. 5 schools where your numbers are pretty much on point, where you'll probably get into a decent number of them. Then 5 where you are above the medians, where you're likely to get scholarship money. That way, you apply to 15. Maybe you get into half of them. Maybe you get into most of your safeties, a couple of your targets, 1 or 2 of your reaches, and then you can negotiate between them, play one school's offer off of another school's offer to see if you can squeeze a bit more money out of them. And hey, maybe you get lucky. But when you apply to a program where you're doing a combined BA/JD and you're saying, hey, I want to avoid the stress of having to apply other places, I'm just going to go with you and only you. It's like marrying your high school sweetheart when maybe you might have met someone else better later. Not saying you shouldn't marry your high school sweetheart, but more options might help you end up with a better situation. No shade to anyone who married their high school sweetheart there, but basically cast a wide net, see what options you can get. And so Joe's saying maybe he's not going to pursue this. We'll see what happens, but yeah, more schools, more options. Carl's asking, is getting an online or distance undergrad degree disadvantageous in law school admissions? Not necessarily. I mean, I think that getting an online BA is frowned upon less and less. It's become more and more normal. Ultimately, if you can maintain a good GPA, I don't think they're going to care a whole lot. Apple Juice is asking about a score trend of 148, 150, 158, then jumping up to 178. Is that a red flag? Not necessarily. I mean, if you're feeling worried about showing such a radically big score increase, maybe you want to write an addendum explaining that, hey, like you took the LSAT before without doing a whole lot of studying. You then really studied a lot more seriously, put a lot more work into it, and that's what led to your score to shoot up. If you want to write about that, write about it. That ultimately, law schools don't really have any incentive to care how you got the higher score, only that you did in fact get the higher score, because the higher score is what they are reporting to the American Bar Association, which in turn is the number pulled by US News for inclusion in the rankings. At the end of the day, the 178 is the 178. Patrick is asking, hey, is 29 or 30 too late to go to law school? No, definitely not. I'm going to hear from folks who are in their late 50s and 60s asking if they're too late. And I tell them, no, they're not too late either. And so if they're not too late, you are certainly not too late. If anything, law schools like it when students have a bit more work experience, a bit more life experience that shows you're not going to law school on a whim or for lack of a better option, but you've really thought it through. Jay's asking, I'm terrible at writing papers and ELA stuff, but love arguing. How hard would law school be? Okay, so this is almost cliche. Don't go to law school just because you like to argue. Succeeding in law school and as a lawyer involves a lot more than just loving to argue. If you want to argue more, get into a romantic relationship if you're not in one already, plenty of opportunities to argue there. But seriously, I mean, being a lawyer, succeeding in law school involves reading difficult, dense texts, also writing well. And so I would level up your writing abilities, see how you do on the LSAT before pursuing law school. I mean, law school is no joke. Being a lawyer is no joke. It's serious work. And it's almost cliche for law school admissions to see people writing essays about how they love to argue. They're going to laugh. They're going to laugh at it, honestly. I'm just telling you straight up. It's funny in a way, but seriously, like, law school is reading and writing, not just arguing. Arguing helps for sure, but it's necessary but not sufficient, perhaps. Law school's asking, I have a 173. I want to start next year, so should I take a gap year before starting? If you want to. I mean, I think it's worth taking a gap year just to see if this is really what you want to do if you're not totally sure. If you were totally sure that you wanted to go to law school, then I'd say, why not just go now? Why delay a year? If you can go to law school a year sooner, you'll have another year on the other end with the earning power of it being an attorney with the JD. In some cases, I'll tell folks, take a gap year just to study for the LSAT more and retake it for a higher score. But if you've got a 173, that may be sufficient. You may not need a higher score. Okay, I see a follow-up comment here. I want to do this, but I'm helping my brother with his college assignments and homework before going. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, if you've got family obligations, then that's understandable why you might need to wait. I also wonder if there are other ways you could help set your brother up for success so that he's not dependent upon you, because you're going to get pretty busy once you're in law school. You may not have the same amount of time to help him out. And so can you get him some tutoring support or have someone else support him, or can you set him up to succeed on his assignments without you? Does patent law pay more? Should I do health science or life science? I'm going to uni this September. That's a good question. Honestly, I'm not too sure which areas of law pay more or less than others. I expect there's a pretty wide range within any particular field of law. But in terms of undergrad majors, you can major in literally anything and go to law school. And even if you want to do patent law or some other area of law, you don't need to have majored in science for undergrad. So you could major in English for undergrad, go to law school, then do patent law. There are no prerequisites for particular areas of law. Houston Dior says, wow, you're live. Yes, so I'm live. So I'm live, by the way, folks, for those just joining, I'm live every single weekday. Same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you're watching this. If you find this helpful, please spread the word. The only way this grows is through word of mouth. I don't do any advertising for these lives. The algorithm doesn't really boost them because they can't run ads during them. And I don't really try to play to the algorithm during these. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just sitting here literally answering your questions about the LSAT and law school admissions. And so I do appreciate your spreading the word, sharing this to your socials, Discord, group chats, Facebook groups, to your TikTok social if you can. And if you're looking for more guidance, more support, if you have more personal questions beyond what I can answer in this context, you can also book a free LSAT tutoring lesson with me. The link to book that free tutoring with me is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below this video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG. It's an open offer for everybody watching this now or later. And I see Houston Dior saying, first time seeing you live, seen you for years on YouTube. Yeah, so I've been doing YouTube pretty seriously now for about 7-8 years or so. And I've been doing daily lives for several months now, but the thing is the algorithm doesn't even show it, right? I mean, this is the first time you're seeing it, and I've been doing this for 7 months or so, at least, pretty consistently, lives every single weekday. And so I really do rely on word of mouth to get the word out because the algorithm doesn't surface these. Yeah, feel free to keep the questions coming. I'll get to as many of those as I can. I'm going to scan back and see if I missed any before. Alex says, the LSAT matters a lot. It's more important than GPA. Yeah, so if you look at the law school admissions index for pretty much every single law school, nearly all of them publish their formulas. You can see how they weight LSAT score relative to GPA. Nearly every single law school weighs your LSAT score more heavily. And part of that's just because grade inflation is out of control. I did a video on this last week because Harvard's looking into changing how they curve grades so that not so many of their students would get easy A's, and there's a whole uproar about it. You can search Google News for the articles about this, but basically, because undergrad GPAs are so inflated, they're virtually useless for law schools to evaluate you, while in contrast, the LSAT score is a more standardized metric, more apples to apples comparison between applicants of different majors from different kinds of universities, because certain majors have more grade inflation than others. Probably not a surprise to you that people in the humanities are getting more A's than people in STEM fields. And some people went to undergrad last year and are now applying to law school. Others went to undergrad 20 years ago, and who you were 20 years ago is not who you are today. Whereas for everybody, they earned their LSAT score within the past couple of years. And so for that reason, the LSAT is considered a more valid and reliable indicator of how you're going to do in your first year of law school and how likely you are to pass the bar exam. Got a question you're asking, does age matter when applying to law school, or does a gap year help with experience? Yeah, I mean, a gap year could help. It could help you to have some work experience on your record. It could also give you time to boost up your LSAT score. They don't really consider age strictly speaking, but the benefits of taking a gap year do help. So you got to weigh, how badly do you want to go to law school right now versus how badly do you want to maybe get some work experience, get an internship, explore whether law school is truly what you want to do, and beef up your resume, and also give yourself more time to get a higher LSAT score. Houston Dealer's asking, when's the last day to register for the June LSAT? I don't remember off the top of my head, probably coming up pretty soon, but you could see that on the LSAC website. They publish all the deadlines there. Law school's asking, I'm thinking about studying for the bar exam early. What's a good site to study for the bar exam? Okay, so I think this might be a premature question, right? If you are still in university, haven't started law school yet, haven't locked down your LSAT score yet, first things first, maintain a good GPA for undergrad, take the LSAT, lock down a great LSAT score, succeed in law school, then take the bar exam. I wouldn't study for the bar exam early because you haven't gone to law school yet, right? Is my understanding based on your previous questions, right? So law school will help prepare you for the bar exam, but there is a lot to learn for it. And part of what law school is doing is prepping you for the bar exam. So why would you study for the bar exam on your own? I mean, if you don't feel like you need law school, then you could just go the Kim Kardashian route and do the apprenticeship system in California. There are ways to circumvent law school entirely. As you said from your username, law school is a privilege, right? Maybe you don't need it, but ultimately, most folks do pursue law school before the bar exam, and law school is going to help you with that. And there are, of course, bar exam courses and such, but I think it's premature to be dealing with that. First things first, uni, strong GPA in undergrad, take the LSAT, get into law school. Bar exam's not going anywhere. Zach says, my LSAT score would have gotten me a full ride 4 years ago. Now I might not even get in. Should I wait a couple of years? So I guess you're referring to LSAT score inflation, right? There's a lot of inflation in both LSAT scores and GPAs. Basically, the requirements that you need to get into law school are increasing over time. And so, like I mentioned, just in the past year, LSAT medians rose an average of roughly 2 points. So you've got to have higher numbers today than you did a couple of years back. So for that reason, you're asking, should you wait a couple of years? Depends. I mean, you don't need a couple years to retake the LSAT and get a higher score. You could retake the LSAT this year and get a higher score. The thing is that the number you needed 4 years ago might not be enough. Now you might need a higher number now to get the same outcomes. And so that might mean you retake the LSAT at a higher score, but you could do that all in the span of this year. You could retake the LSAT in June or August and apply to law school the second that applications open in September. So that's what I would do. I would say retake it in June or retake it in August or retake it in both June and August and apply the second applications open in September. You've got plenty of opportunities ahead for you to retake it and do better. The question is what you're going to do differently this time around. If there's a resource you didn't use before that you could use now, if you didn't take a course or didn't get coaching, you could do that now. We offer all of the above, of course. At LSAT Unplugged, we offer private one-on-one custom coaching programs. We offer small group coaching, on-demand courses, custom study plans. Happy to meet with you personally and talk you through what those options could look like. Anyone watching this now or later can book a free LSAT tutoring lesson with me personally. The link to book that free tutoring is unpluggedprep.com/start. The link is below the video on YouTube, pinned in the chat on YouTube, in my bio on TikTok and IG as well. That's an open offer, by the way, for everybody watching this now or later. Happy to talk you through your situation, look at where you're currently at, what your goal score is, and how to get you from here to there over your time frame. But right now we're focused on students taking the LSAT in June, August, and September. Plenty of time to improve significantly. And the LSAT can help you get into schools in both the US and Canada. I see a question about Canadian law school admissions. I mean, the LSAT's going to help you with both. It's used across North America entirely. Josh asks, I'm a freshman in undergrad. What should I do to put myself in the best spot for law school? It's GPA and LSAT. And so if you are a freshman in undergrad right now, I'd focus on just maintaining a high GPA. The LSAT's not going anywhere. Law school's not going anywhere. Maintain a high GPA. Focus on enjoying college, pursuing whether law school is really what you want to do. If it is, come back to the LSAT in a year or two. You could take it in sophomore or junior year and apply in fall of senior year and go direct from undergrad to law school if that's what you want to do. But your LSAT score is good for 5 years. And so you could take it sophomore, junior year, and you'd still be fine. I see Boca Raton says, waiting on my results. So I'm guessing you took the April LSAT. You're waiting for your score to come back eagerly. For those who aren't aware, LSAT scores come back about 2 to 3 weeks after you take it. For those who took the April LSAT, scores are coming back April 29th, 2 weeks from today. And then based on those results, you may decide to retake or not retake. I'd recommend that most folks who took it in April should end up retaking, just because it's not going to delay your applications. If you're applying to law school this fall anyway, you could take the LSAT in June and still apply when applications open in the fall. So why not? If you could do better, great. If not, no big deal. But might as well give it a shot and see what happens. Just scanning through for other questions here. I see Ogo's asking about LLMs. Are LLMs better for any type of program that may be more specialized? I was wondering specifically for patent and IP, since this also requires the patent bar and a STEM undergrad. Okay. I would talk to law schools about that. That's a little bit outside my personal area. But first and foremost, I mean, get the JD. You're going to need that no matter what. So focus on first things first, right? Don't put the cart before the horse. Get the JD, lock that down, and then see if you actually need an LLM. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But focus on optimizing one outcome at a time. I will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central, 11 Pacific, here on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you're watching that. If you're looking for more support, you can book the free LSAT tutoring with me. And I also am creating free reading comp explanations for every single reading comp passage ever. All of those are linked on the live tab of the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel. You can see them all there every day as I'm creating those as well. In the meantime, all the best. Take care. Thanks for joining.